People trust the site that feels easy, not the site with more detail. That's not taste, that's your brain managing risk.
When something feels hard to process, it feels less safe. Then people leave.
Welcome to ThinkShift, the podcast where neuroscience meets business.
Today we're unpacking why great design drives conversion, what your brain is really reacting to, and what changed this week to make decisions feel easier. If your website is not converting, this matters. All right, Leanne, good to see you again.
Yeah. Hey, Clint, how you going?
I am good.
How's your week been?
It's been a solid.
Yeah.
Yes, but exciting.
I always say productive.
Productive.
Yeah, because everyone goes, I'm busy,
Don't say busy.
I'm busy. Don't say everyone's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right to be busy if you're being productive.
That's right.
Because
That's
you
exactly
can't be
right.
busy and unproductive, which happens.
That's right.
You don't want that.
So today we're going to talk about why good design drives conversion.
Yeah.
And first, we're going to go through the science behind it. So people don't trust what feels hard. They trust what feels easy. So what is cognitive fluency in plain language?
So, cognitive fluency is an interesting term, but it's around how easily the brain processes something.
Right.
So whether it's something that we're reading, an image that we're looking at, or a combination, it's how our brain is operating. Is it causing us a bit of grief? Is it hard? Does it feel like there's a lot of effort? Or does it come naturally to us and, it's pretty much an easy step or an easy guideline or an easy decision to make? Okay.
So why does more detail sometimes reduce conversion then?
So when something's harder to do, it's more complicated. So there's risk. It's like, I don't know if I should do it. God, this is too many steps. Also, there's an element of expectation from all of us, whether we're on the business side of things or whether a consumer side of things. There's a level of expectation. And if it's a lot more than what we've expected, we think, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
It's high risk. They want too much from me. I haven't got time. It's hard. Mightn't be hard, but it is. So that that can create big problems.
It sounds too hard.
It does. Sounds too hard. And often one of the biggest mistakes we make as humans, the human species, because other animals do not, is we think the more that we offer and the more complicated it looks, the better we are, the more important we feel, the more intelligent we look, the better the service or the higher the status of the product. Actually, it works the total opposite.
Absolutely. And I think a really good example of this is one we all know very well, and that would be Microsoft and Apple. So if you look at Microsoft packaging of the past, probably early 2000s and onwards, everything was on the boxes of the Microsoft Windows and whatnot. So marketing messaging, and even on their marketing displays and their advertising that would appear on billboards and whatnot, so much information.
Yeah.
Then you look at Apple and what they do, it's just like one headline product picture, and it's like, okay, what's more powerful, what's more impactful? And you're just explaining now why that is so.
Minimalistic, sleek, clean, know what you're talking about. I mean, there is, and some of you listening and watching this, please, send us a message on our socials. We're everywhere. Who of you keep your Apple packaging? I actually did a post on this a little while ago around.
I'm guilty.
Oh, wow. There you go, Clint. Okay, so who joins Clint in keeping some, maybe not all, some of your, because of the crispness and the eliteness that the product actually, the way it feels and the perception of, the great products, right? But it's not about that. How we feel. Unboxing an Apple product is a process.
It is, but it's a simple process.
It's simple, and it makes the consumer feel special, not the product feel special.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what role does visual hierarchy play in decision-making?
It's everything. It's the way we look at and how we interpret any information that we see, especially when it comes to websites, right? So what we see first has most importance, whether we're looking from left to right, which is generally how the brain operates in most societies. Obviously, there's other cultural differences and different ways that people read from right to left, depending on where you're from. But the majority of English-speaking world, even if English is not your first language, generally we operate from left to right. That's why I always say logos should be on the top left. Any important information, top left, because it's what the brain interprets first from a visual hierarchy perspective. Also, how much information there is. So if there's too much information to be able to place in a hierarchy, it all becomes one big mess. We need to compartmentalize. Our brain will, create buckets of information, and we need to provide a way to let our consumers do that, not by making it messy and busy. So, often, Clint, you talk about, having, minimal and a lot of space around, which I know we're going to talk about later, around the way that someone would read a website and how important that is to reduce cognitive load and cognitive fluency.
Yeah, cognitive load is a huge one, and it's a fine balance between giving enough information so the user knows why they are there and, the value of your product and service, and then overloading them to the point where you've turned them away.
Yeah.
And that's why I think because of that fine line, it's so important to hire copywriters and strategists and user experience experts to do that heavy lifting for you, because they're the ones that know what that balance is. It's high risk for a business to go and try and do it themselves. Yeah. And I see a lot of this with particularly web development businesses.
You don't have to pay a fortune either. I don't want people thinking, but they're so expensive. No, you can get great copywriters and strategists that you don't have to pay a fortune. There are, that will work with you and understand decision sciences.
Yeah. And you'll pay for it later. Like if you don't pay for it up front, the cost will be later on. And the last thing you want to do is spend umpteen thousands of dollars on a new website development and go, oh no, I'll do the content, I'll do the copy, I know what I want to say. It's like you might, but is it in a way that is optimal for your user? Is it optimal for the personas that you've identified that are going to be using your site that that they need to convert in a certain way? Do you understand that path to purchase behavior?
Yeah.
Do you understand? And usually no.
Yeah.
So don't risk it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So why do people confuse pretty with trustworthy? Yeah. Kristen, cut that out.
No, leave that in.
Oh, gosh. Why do people confuse pretty with trustworthy?
Oh, wow. So people think when something looks nice or aesthetically pleasing that it's trusting. But it actually it is, and a lot of it can potentially be a lie or misleading.
Yeah.
So we want something to look nice. Absolutely. When you are designing and you're putting together, say, your website or your marketing collateral or any assets for your business, it needs to be on brand. It needs to represent you, your corporate identity, your expertise. Absolutely. But this is someone who loves aesthetics right now. I love fashion and colours and patterns and textures. We can go overboard. And we need to pull that back, because that doesn't necessarily mean that a website's trustworthy. If it's cluttered, if there's a lot of information that we need to take in and translate, actually increases risk, not trust.
Okay.
It's a liability.
Is that because there's an inconsistency between the message and the visual?
That too, absolutely.
Right.
And here's an example. There was a small study that they did in Oxford University. There was an Oxford University professor, and they asked him to write and publish 2 articles. One written in his discipline and as a professor using, professorial, language, and one that could be read and understood by a 12-year-old. These 2 were then sent to the faculty and to the students, and they were asked, who do you think was a subject matter expert out of these 2? And the majority of the people said the article that was written for a 12-year-old. Minimalistic, straight to the point. They could understand it. In fact, not only did they say it was written better, they put more trust in that because they thought, because the other one was so chock full of language and jargon and information they didn't understand, they actually thought the person was trying to pretend to know what
sense.
they were talking about rather than actually knowing it. And then obviously in the end they found out it was one professor that did it, but it's such an interesting study, and I actually have told a lot of people about this.
Yeah.
Minimal doesn't mean bland and doesn't mean dumb. A lot of people say to me, but I'm really intelligent. Yes, you are. Let's show that.
Yeah. I think as well, like that comes down to identifying persona. So meeting the market where they are at.
That's right. Yeah.
And talking to them in language that they understand. And this is why the persona work up front, and for those that don't understand what that is, it's identifying the users that are using your service or product on your website and talking to them in the language that they understand. And without that work up front, catastrophic. You will fall into these traps of
100%.
over-explaining, overemphasizing unimportant information, or using acronyms that these users won't understand, all sorts of pitfalls.
Yeah, and there's, a lot of the work that I do is in profiling and creating, using profiling attributes to help clients with their personas. And Neurodesign is a proprietary version of DISC, which I'm accredited in. And, we use it in a very different way. And I teach it in a very different way around understanding, those that understand the DISC formula. We use it in a way that is appropriate for design, for sales and marketing and conversion. It still comes under the dominance, influence, steadiness and compliance, but we have designed this profiling in a way that is more around language, around, text, certain medium within the way that you're communicating, length, emails, call to action buttons that change per persona or per profile. And that's really important because for some, they want detail. For others, give me a one-liner and I'm done. And you need to identify that. And that's it's one of the biggest mistakes that businesses that I see, and you see too, where they're almost sabotaging their own business by not actually doing this exercise and understanding.
There's a really good example that you and I worked on recently with a real estate business, and they were talking to their potential customers with the same language, the same proposals, regardless of who it was, what their profile was or whatnot. And some of the work we did with them was all around, okay, we now need to change those proposals to each one of those DISC profiles, D-I-S-C. You're not going to get it right across the board for every time, but at least if you can identify the core ones, because not everyone's one, right? They're often a DI or a DS or whatever it might be. And so if you can then talk to those users in the way that they want to be spoken to, again, it's a bit like persona mapping. It comes under that. The effectiveness of those proposals goes through the roof because you are now talking to them. I think a really good example actually was an email. You never talk to a D on email, ask them how their weekend was.
Wow. Yeah.
So you'll just lose them. Just be to the point. Delete. Yeah. Which I think is incredible. Like most people wouldn't even think that because, of course, you feel like I need to be polite. I need to ask them how their weekend was. Everybody needs to be.
Emailing to confirm that our appointment is blah, blah, blah and leave it at that. But with, an I, which is what I am, you ask me how my weekend is, will expect me to tell you.
Yeah. Same.
So that's, so it is. And again, it's not about you, it's about your customer.
Yes. So design isn't decoration, it is decision engineering. So let's talk about what to look out for as a consumer. If a site feels hard, your brain assumes the business is hard. So let's talk about the fastest signs a site is not designed for decision ease.
Yeah. And this is your expertise,
it
really, and maybe you talk, Clint, you talk through some of these particular things, especially in your experience of what you've seen. Also, then what you've had to fix and redesign or design from the outset as well.
Yeah. So too many competing elements is probably the number one thing. Trying to fit too much in blocks on each screen. No clear next step, so the user is unclear what they need to do next. Inconsistent fonts and spacing, so utilizing all different typefaces, more than 2, 3, 4 walls of text, right? Way over copywritten way too much information. And I also say not using chunking. So chunking is putting information and imagery into blocks that can be easily digested by the consumer, so they get what they need in bite-sized pieces rather than walls of text all in one go.
That's clever.
They're the main things.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing I see is, and I again, we're coming back to, we think more is better, but more provides more opportunity for risk.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying that you just want one sentence on a page. I mean, we need to be sensible here, but we've got to learn and relearn and condition ourselves that more is not better. I mean, when people say, less is best, that's I mean, it's a cliche for a reason. In a number of situations and circumstances, you want to be concise. Also, having a website that is clearer and minimalistic, and without those those things that you were talking about, it shows your expertise.
Yeah,
it shows it clearer. You concentrate on what's important rather than the fluff.
Yes,
because if we can't interpret or read something quickly, as far as we're concerned, it's fluff.
Yes.
And that's what happened with the paper from the professor. It was very concise. They understood it. They go, yep, this is a great paper. The other one was fluff. But in fact, the other one was very serious and actually a lot more detailed and had a lot more expertise. But to the consumer, no, it's just fluff. And I know a number, and I see websites on a daily basis where I look at them and go, oh my gosh, I can feel a headache coming on.
Yeah.
And there's a number that I'm thinking of right now in my head, some that you probably know exactly what I'm thinking, where it's like, you need to wind it back.
Yeah.
What is it?
Distill.
Don't hide your expertise and your authority. It should be standing out. Don't hide it amongst, the mountains and the walls of text and imagery and colours and, all this, fonts and sizes.
Yeah.
Be consistent. Make it easier for someone's brain to be able to interpret. So then when they're reading your expertise, it's clear and it's direct.
And also the sloppiness that you've just referred to around, font sizes and even, alignment of elements outside of a grid, which is a 12, 16 column, a grid on a page that is used for aligning elements as a designer. Yeah. If those elements aren't lining up structurally, it becomes sloppy. Yeah. And that signals risk, right? Suddenly you're going, these guys aren't an authority. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they can't even line up the text.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. See, that's sometimes it's subliminal, right? It's like I know there's something not quite right here, and suddenly I feel like they're not worth me investing in or converting with or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So a bit of a mini checklist for the listeners. Can you tell what to do in 3 seconds? When someone arrives on your website, is it immediately obvious? And a client of mine in recent years is they were in the lending business, and their headline says, "We do lending." Like that's literally the headline. It's like, oh, that's what they do. Like it needs to be really obvious.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up in this long spiel, and particularly on first impression of the page, trying to say too much to everybody.
Well, what was the statistic that we were talking about yesterday? 50 milliseconds, and we can reference these papers for you too if you want them as well, and send us a message. But 50 milliseconds is the first impression. So we obviously look. It takes 3 seconds to fully consume that information, and again, it's only 3 seconds. But 50 milliseconds is what it takes to decide to pursue into that 3 second interaction or not.
Yep. No.
So what was it? We do lending?
We do lending, yeah.
Brilliant.
Actually, I understand.
Yeah, I understand. Then you go into the detail, right?
That's right. Yeah. Can you find price, proof, and next steps without hunting? We talked about dark patterns in the previous episode. It's a little bit of that in some ways.
Yes.
Make it easy for the user to find what they need. Does the page feel consistent from top to bottom? Do forms feel easy, not demanding? You're making it just simple to converse.
Yeah, I don't want to add my address. I don't want to add my favourite colour.
No.
I don't want to add my mother's maiden name. I don't want to add the name of my pet.
Yeah. Do you need to put in too much effort to find the information you need to drive a conversion? So they're the main things. All right. So now we're going to talk about the practical design levers that drive conversion. So design drives conversion through a few repeatable levers. Number one is visual hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Visual hierarchy is one primary message and one primary action per screen. Yep. So meaning your eyes land on the key message first. What not to do, right? everything looks equally important. That is a big no-no. Yeah. So we need to have, and there's language around this that some of our listeners may not be familiar with, H1, H2, H3, H4. So these are web development terms. Your heading or headline will be H1, and then the next headline or subheading down will be H2, and the subheading underneath that one will be H3, and so on and so forth.
And there's certain font sizes for each of these, right?
They're all different font sizes to make sure that prominence is determined by size of the typeface. Okay. And it's very easy for the user to cognitively understand that. And so, that one is.
So this one is important, this one's not as important. And then they go on the next page and go, oh, okay, this is something that I'm going to take note of. But then I've gone back to H1. Whoa, I better take notice.
Makes it very easy to understand flow as well when it's set out in such a way with the H1 to H6 kind of hierarchy. The next one is level 2 is typography and readability. Fast reading, clear structure, short lines, meaning you can skim and still understand what's on the page, right? So what not to do? Dense copy and weak headings, like making sure your fonts are consistent, no more than 2, heading style and a body copy style different.
Yeah. I think I have that.
You do?
You designed my website, so
I hope so.
Talking to the expert.
It just makes it, you don't want to be vanilla either, right? You want to stand out a bit. Yeah. You need to have a personality. And I know there's a lot of typefaces out there that we all lean on as designers, and we kind of get stuck in the Inters and the Montserrats.
Some that are Google compatible and some that aren't as well, I learnt.
It is. So there's a bit of a minefield around type choice and treatment, but we can often get caught up in feeling safe by using ones we're familiar with, that we know work on mobile, tablet, desktop. But what's happened is that the reliance on those is meaning suddenly everyone's website looks like that. So everybody's using Inter suddenly in 2025 last year. Inter was a typeface that everybody uses. And so suddenly all the websites start looking the same. You've got headlines that look the same. You've got body copy that looks the same. So fantastic typeface, don't get me wrong. But suddenly there's no differentiation between different products and services. So I would say, importantly, use something with a bit of personality, but hire someone that knows how to help you with that. It's not easy for a business to determine what that is. And it all comes back to the brand as well. So, if it's a branding exercise that's been done at the beginning of a business creation, then we use those guidelines and whatnot to determine what those typefaces are. Next one is...
Think of neurodesign. Sorry to interrupt. If you think of neurodesign, we have I love the actual H1, the neurodesign.
The headline typeface.
Gorgeous. And then we've got a more, simplistic.
Legible.
One for a reason. And plus we're a science-based organisation, so it has to then, complement what we do.
Yeah.
But if you go on to neurodesign, not consulting, and have a look, you see the difference, what Clint's talking about, and how that fits in. And there's 2.
Yeah.
There's not 10.
That's right. And how it affects brand perception, right? There's a premium feel depending on the typefaces you choose, right? And their size and their space and then the visual hierarchy. It's so important to get that right for brand perception. Yeah. It could mean the difference between, a sale and not a sale.
Or not, yeah.
Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to ThinkShift so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes. The last lever here is spacing and layout clarity. We've kind of touched on this a little bit. So it's grouping, separation, predictable rhythm. So sections feel distinct and calm. There's not this chaos and different sizing and widths of sections, and it can become really heavy cognitively, again, to absorb the information. Yeah. And so we want to avoid that. If we can. What not to do, crowded layouts and consistent spacing. So, again, we've talked about that.
Yeah, and, the way that we're behaving and operating and around scrolling is changing too. You'd be familiar, and some of our listeners would be familiar, and subscribers would be familiar around the F shape. You go from left to right all the way across, and then you've got the smaller one, and then you're going vertically, so horizontal, vertical, and that is changing because of our System 1 thinking from the dual process theory. So our System 1, our quick thinking, is that We're not even giving ourselves time to look in the shape of an F. It's now a blob down the middle of the page.
Top down.
That's right, top down. So when you were talking about skimming and still being able to understand and interpret and get an idea of what the website's about or what your marketing collateral's about or what the business is about or what you're about, that's really important.
Yeah.
So we're now straight down the middle.
Wow.
And I did a post on this actually taken from a study with the two pictures from, heat map and a heat map application, which was placed on these in this study that was placed on to look at where people were going or what was driving them, and from eyesight and also mouse clicks. And it was incredible to see the difference from previous 12 months ago to now.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah.
Attention span?
Yeah,
Is
that too. Yep,
all
absolutely. Of that. So there's an expectation now that we are working at the speed of light. Mm-hmm. It's not even that we're just doing it. There's an expectation that we should be faster. We can be faster. How do we get faster?
Yeah.
And is it a good thing? No, but it's not bad either. It's the way that we're operating. AI has contributed to some of that as well. But we need to go with the expectation of the consumer, and if that's what they're doing, that's what we need to provide.
Correct. Let's move on to business.
Yeah.
So as a business, what to change this week? So you don't need to redesign your entire website to improve conversion. You just need clarity and effort reduction. So what are the most common conversion-killing design mistakes that you see, Leanne?
Geez, a couple of the main ones is, and this does my head in actually, multiple call to actions in particular, but then multiple call to actions that are competing.
Yes.
So
different verbiage or different style or different?
Different, yeah. So the text is different, the color of the button's different, the rounded edges versus sharp edges, which is obviously that inconsistency in behavior, says something different. So we could even say learn more, but you've got them in all different colors, or you've got download this, subscribe, learn more, make a call, book a call. Oh my goodness. So it's competing as well as too many and for overload. What do you actually want me to do?
Yeah, too much choice.
Too much choice. And we talk about choice paradox. When there's too much choice, we walk away.
That's it.
We think it's the more choice the better. Actually, no, you tell me what you want me to do.
That's right.
Do you want me to book a call? Do you want me to book a meeting, a discovery call, or book a meeting? Or do you want me to learn more?
Yes. Drive the user towards the path that makes the most sense for them.
For them. Absolutely.
Yep.
Another one, unclear headings. Yeah. What is it that you do? I mean, so many times I'll read a website or someone will say, I actually went to this website and I still don't know what they're doing. You would see this a lot. I mean, this is your field of expertise. But even for me, and I know a lot about it, but not to your level, nowhere near. I've just looked at this website. I actually know the person and I sort of know what you do because I know the person. I'm looking at the website going, I have no idea.
Yeah.
It looks nice. Okay. So what?
But we don't be clear.
I don't know.
Yep. The other one would be weak proof placement. Proof meaning social proof.
Social proof, yeah.
So testimonials, brands or businesses that the business works with. So it has appeared on the Today Show, has appeared on NBC, has appeared on here, or other companies that we work with, and obviously, the testimonial piece.
Yeah.
By weak, we mean nowhere near call to action.
Yeah.
Or too far down the bottom of the page.
Sometimes not even on the homepage.
Yeah. Just hidden.
I mean, if you've got some great reviews, testimonials, or awards that you've won, or affiliations, showcase those. You should be proud you've earned those.
Yes.
Don't wait until it's further back because it's a huge risk that you won't even get anyone there.
Yeah. Another big boo-boo, which probably isn't seen as a boo-boo, is, form over function. We often, and I know this because I'm a designer as well, and I see it a lot in the design game where we concentrate so heavily on winning design awards for how aesthetic our websites are, but they actually don't convert quite as well as ones that aren't over-designed. So there's a fine balance between being too designed and just offering what the user needs, what they need to get to a conversion. Yes, it needs to still obviously look amazing, have clear structure, hierarchy, font choice, all the rest of it. But it's when we overdo the form bit and it costs us in terms of conversion. We need to be really careful on that. Okay, so there's some measurement focus we can do on our websites, and that is track clicks on the primary CDA.
Yeah, and anyone can do this, right?
Anyone can do this.
Anyone, yeah.
Track form completion rate. You'll need analytics or some kind of tracking software set up on your website to be able to do this. Track drop-off points on key pages. So all this data needs to be tracked. A lot of businesses don't know how to interpret the data, and that is where I'd say, well, then you need to hire someone that can do that for you. It's super critical. If you don't know what's going on your website, you can't make decisions to move forward. You can't make decisions to even change. It's one of the biggest questions I get asked quite often is, the question I ask actually is, why? They say, I need a new website. I say, why? And they can't tell me. It's usually because I don't like the design anymore.
Yeah, I'm sick of the old one.
I'm sick of the old one. And it's kind of like, well, it's not good enough to start from there. We need to start from a conversion.
Not performing.
What's the performance look like? Where are users going now, and where do you want them to go? And those are the things we need to measure and track. So making sure that that's set up whenever you get a new website built, make sure that it's been set up for tracking, Google Analytics, and all those bits and pieces, even heat mapping if you want to go a step further, to see what your user is doing so we can make changes based on that data and not just finger in the air decisions that you're just pulling out of nowhere, right? Catastrophic.
Yeah.
Wasted money. Yeah. Last thing we want. And that's part of my business model myself is de-risking businesses from making decisions without being informed. Yeah. Here's the shift. Good design reduces perceived risk. When things feel easy, the brain assumes they are safe. When things feel hard, the brain assumes they are risky. So conversion is not only messaging, it is decision ease. One action for the listener this week, pick one high traffic page, make one decision easier for your user today. Remove one point of effort. And that's Think Shift. I'm Clint.
I'm Leanne.
One idea, one shift in under 30 minutes. If this changed how you think, share it with someone who makes decisions for a living.
And follow Think Shift on all the socials. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what shift is coming up next. See you in the next episode.
Bye for now.
This is a March Made Media production.